Hi everyone, and welcome to Worth the Calories, a Great British Bake Off podcast. Pastry week.
I didn't have a soggy bottom. I'm so pleased.
Have you been waiting to say that to me all day?
Absolutely. Or at least since I crunched through the base of my bake. But more on that later.
Okay. Another good week. This is shaping up as a good Bake Off season.
Yeah, I agree. Really good week. Really good standard. Really good challenges.
Yep.
Loved
it. I'm enjoying it thoroughly in the watch. I'm enjoying thinking about it afterwards. I'm enjoying what we then get to look at making as well.
Absolutely.
I think they've stepped it up really well. There was a thing in the week that someone wrote an article about how to fix Bake Off.
All right.
I'm going to start off with one of the topics of discussion I want to talk about, because I want to talk about Noel and Matt Lucas.
Right.
And one of their things was get rid of Paul Hollywood, get rid of the ridiculous technical challenges. You know, so some of the stuff that we have touched on. You know,
Yes.
Maybe Paul has been doing this a long time.
Yes. Yeah, I think... I don't know who they'd replace him with, is my problem.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't know if the Bake Off brand and the Paul Hollywood brand are too intertwined.
Well, at this stage, maybe they are. But part of the thing this was saying was that there's a power differential between the judges.
I get that.
Which I think I would agree with.
So.
Compared to the professionals. With
Benoit and Cherish.
Yeah.
Who are very much punching at the same weight.
But in different ways, which is great, which is what the judges should be doing. And Paul and Mary had that. And Paul and Prue, I don't think. It always comes across that she's trying to say something complimentary because he's gone so negative.
Yes. Although that was not necessarily the case this week. She was a bit brutal about their eclairs.
Yes.
But that was her recipe, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and justifiably. But
yes.
I can understand that thing. And we've talked about technical challenges, and we've talked about some of the other aspects and so on.
Yeah.
But it had a comment of the presenters.
Right.
And changing up the presenters. I will admit, I was watching with some of this in mind. I think Matt and Noel are really working. And the reason I think they're really working is they're exactly the same as Mel and Sue.
Yes.
I think you could have transplanted all the jokes, the playing table tennis, the lattice head stuff, the way that they, even the way Matt Lucas did the, oh, bakers, you must be exhausted, well done, I'm going to tell you who's star baker. The way he delivered that, it's exactly the way Mel and Sue used to.
Yeah.
And I think they've found a double act where a double act did not exist.
I agree. I think they're very comfortable with each other, and they're just a bit silly.
Yes.
And they're also kind. You know, like there's no meanness, there's no nastiness, and they're so supportive to the bakers.
No, Noel is slightly perpendicular to everyone else. I will say, you know, he does say stuff like, okay, he gets away with that because he's kind of charming, but
yeah.
But again, one of the comments was about, you know, it worked with Noel and Sandy because they were so different and fine people, but actually, the reason we loved Mel and Sue was they worked really well as a double act and they were good individually. Yes. And I think Matt and Noel are working that way, and I am here for it, actually. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot as well.
I think it's just such a change from Sandy.
Yeah.
Who we liked. So.
Yeah, I like Sandy a lot. I just feel that they had exhausted the amount of humour they could get out of her and Noel working together.
Yeah. It was all short jokes, which boring.
Yeah. I'd just like to come back on the other point, though, about the fixing the technicals.
Yeah, so this is me drawing a line under discussing Matt Lucas as the newbie, how is he fitting and how is he doing stuff. We're going to call them out when we enjoy them. But I think I'm now, tick in that box, I'm accepting it.
Yeah.
Right, technical challenges.
So the point you were, that article that you quoted was saying about, you know, they need to fix the technicals, I think they have. If we were just talking about this season's technicals, I have no complaints.
Nope.
So I feel that article is possibly commenting on the past rather than the current.
Yes, and we have definitely had a real vibe of people haven't heard of this, and this is the Walker pastry thing, that Moroccan pie that I had to do.
Yeah, it was delicious.
But it was ridiculous.
Yes.
Really, really was. So I think that aspect they're not going for anymore. People have heard of babka, not necessarily everyone, but it was always the same. It was always the same when it was croissants.
Yeah.
Not everyone necessarily has had one.
Yeah.
But now it's, you know, and eclairs.
Yeah.
People have generally heard of eclairs, but they're making it slightly more complicated. It's a salted caramel and raspberry one. It's piped in a different way, and it's
Arguably, it would have been as difficult for them this week if they hadn't made it more complicated, because so many of them just struggled with making a choux eclair.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I felt that was fixed.
When we come to the end of the discussion today, I think next week's will be the test of what they're doing with technical challenges. But more on that later. What was our signature challenge?
It was Cornish pasties and not samosas.
And not samosas. Right, yeah. So.
And also, they weren't all Cornish pasties, really, were they? I mean, there were pasties in the sense that you get a range of flavour of pasties at Greg's.
Yeah.
Or other bakers
and other
as
bakers
well.
are available.
But I mean, I don't think any one of them actually made what I would call a Cornish pasty.
Yeah, I can't remember any that had beef and potato and so on.
No.
And even the, was it the Toad and the Whole one that had mashed potato? I would have gone with a mashed swede or something with just a little bit more flavour to it, because I think it needed, and they said it was very tasty, so that's fine. And that does sound like a good idea.
I'd have eaten that.
Yeah. But again, this is a challenge they could have gone for, I'm just making you a great Cornish pasty.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
But I think some of the brief was to push it out there a bit. And I think they did that. And I think the people who did well.
Yeah, really well.
Yeah, really, really came off. I think some of the discussion on how many pleats and how you do it and so on, I would have liked that to have been in context of, if you get this spot on, we're going to judge you because we're expecting really high stuff. But if you don't do it, it's just that you're not getting the extra 5 points. It's that sort of aspect. It's going from a B to an A sort of
exactly, because they didn't specify in the brief, and you must do 20 crimps.
Yeah.
They just said, we want some crimping.
Yeah. Especially if it's any shape. Well, your shape then doesn't have to have that many crimps. So
yeah, exactly.
Fine. I think they look really tasty. I think people did very well.
Yeah.
When they followed the brief and did the thing that was on the brief.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I'd have enjoyed eating Linda's.
Yep.
I think it looked really tasty.
The judges did.
And the judges did. It just wasn't actually what was asked for.
It wasn't actually a pasty, so...
It was, but it did look very tasty.
Yes.
Were there any that you wouldn't have eaten?
I can't remember any. I mean, there were some that seemed less interesting.
Yeah.
But by and large, they did all have something to them that seemed good. Are you asking that because there was one that stood out for you?
Well, I think some of them, there were lots of them going through. I was going, oh yes, yes, I'd eat that. Oh yes, I'd eat that. The one that stood out to me that I thought was beautiful, but that I wasn't so sure of, was Peter's haddock kedgeree pie.
Oh yes, you reminded me there was kedgeree in there, and I don't like kedgeree, so
I'm just sitting here going, why is he not saying the fishy one?
Because I have erased it from my memory, because it's pasty with kedgeree. Pasty's one of the great dishes. One of the great, that it is designed to sit in your pocket in a mine and be eaten and still be warm. It is a wonderful work of science. You don't put kedgeree in that.
Now, I like kedgeree more than you.
Ugh.
Which wouldn't be hard. I think a rock on the street would like kedgeree more than you do. But even so, I was just a little bit like, I'm not sure about the idea of rice inside pastry.
Yeah.
But
I can see why you do it, especially if you've got very wet ingredients to help stop the pastry from going rubbish. But yeah.
I think for me, and I know this is my taste rather than your taste, I think Laura's looked delicious with the cheese and the cream.
Oh, she did was it cheese and leek, cheese and onion?
Yeah. They called it, interestingly, they called it cheese and onion on the show, and they called it something completely different on the website when they put the recipe up. So I don't know if they. And actually, when you read the recipe, there's a lot more about leek and cream, and yes, there's some cheese in it.
Right.
But I don't think there's actually any onions in it. So I wonder if they're like, we can't call it cheese and onion on our website because it's not actually cheese and onion.
Yes, that did sound nice, and it looked very good.
Yes,
I think it. When it was served and being eaten, it was like, oh, that looks like a good meal.
Yeah.
In the same way, Hermine's was.
That looked super tasty.
Really nice lamb, really nice sort of stew kind of filling. Yeah, that was good.
That's on the website as well. So maybe one day when we're not sort of baking something new from a new episode every weekend, that might appear.
I think so. So we didn't bake any of the pasties, and I think one of the reasons I came so close to doing Hermine's, but it was just there is so much to this. I don't have time to do it at this point. But exactly like you say, it would be nice to return to. So the technical.
I'm not into eclairs.
No.
They're just not my bag.
Yeah, eclairs are...
I can't even remember the last time I had an eclair.
Oof. I mean, chocolate eclairs, the little sweets, amazing.
Oh, right, with the caramel and the chocolate.
Yeah,
boom,
love taking
boom.
them to the cinema.
I think for me, like the eclair, the cakey eclair, it's full of cream normally, isn't it?
Yeah, with a bit of chocolate or some sort of cream on top. Anyway, so 3 raspberry, 3 salted caramel eclairs.
We might have liked these eclairs.
Which we might have liked. And I think the way that they are styled, that Prue wanted them to really look, they look great. Again,
yes.
I always use this patisserie Valerie sort of thing. The really good shop window ones.
Yeah.
Fine. So what they're testing is, can you do choux pastry?
Yeah.
And bake it to fill it? Can you then create a creme pat?
Yep.
And can you pipe that to fill a thing?
Yeah.
And then can you ice the top of it so it sets and looks good?
Mm-hmm.
And that's right for a technical. If we're saying they're fixed technicals, it's here are certain very specific skills. Go and do them well for us.
I was amazed at how many of them didn't do that thing. I'm really amazed at how many of them couldn't produce a creme pat.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you just threw the ingredients at me and told me to crack on, I probably couldn't produce a creme pat. But I'm not on Bake Off.
Exactly. Given how often that came up, certainly in the early mid seasons, I think creme pat was a really established thing in this show. I think it's sort of diminished a little bit, been overtaken by meringue perhaps, but it has been an established thing on this show. So it's one of the staples. In the same way you would need to know how to do all the pastries, how to do core biscuit types, a ginger, a shortbread, cookie, and so on. And then how to do different types of meringue, creme pat, different types of cream, and then different types of ganache. There's just some core stuff that I would make sure I know by rote.
But
which is why I'm not entering, because I don't want to learn it all.
But the number of scrambled eggs creme pats, like that actually, like, was it Laura's? No, not Laura. Lottie's split. And I was just like, oh, that's
it did look
just looks a bit
bad,
grim, really, didn't it?
Is this just a time thing? That it's not only get the techniques right, get them right in a really short amount of time when nothing can go wrong for you?
I do think that's probably a feature, because there was a lot going on, especially with all the decoration.
Yeah.
I think, the ones that managed to pull it off with a caramelized hazelnut on the top as well. I'm like, seriously, you're like superhuman. Do you have a clone? But yes. So yeah, but we didn't do it because not on the website.
There is no recipe, and I can't remember if we said this last week, but the chocolate babka recipe disappeared.
Yeah.
So we don't know yet if this is going to be a standard thing. Yeah. Is it something that, because they've got a book coming out, recipes that go in the book don't go on the website?
So I was a little bit concerned by this at first.
Okay.
Because I'm like, oh, that's our thing. We try the
That's
technicals.
That's
our thing. That's what we do.
Not give us free recipes.
But do you know what? Now I'm actually of completely the opposite mindset. I feel that by them not putting the technical up there, they gave me the freedom to choose which one I wanted to bake.
Okay.
And actually, I'm a lot happier with the one that I chose to bake,
right,
rather than feeling that I had to make something that I was not that fussed about anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm choosing to view it as an opportunity for freedom.
Okay. And this might be our different experiences with baking, because for me it's quite an exciting thing to get to do something I've not necessarily done before, trying out different techniques and different elements of baking. Whereas quite often the showstopper and the signature are things that we've meddled in, not always obviously, but have tried. So it's.
Yeah, I get that.
That's. I think that's just my take on it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You've done more different baking than me. So even today in the showstopper, there's some stuff I'd done before. There's some stuff I hadn't done before. Some stuff I struggled with. So I guess it still was a learning opportunity. I think also I just basically don't like being told what to do. So having any element of being told what to do removed from this and being allowed to choose what to do for myself kind of suits my personality.
So, yeah, a range, and it was really interesting, the camera shot when they came out, because there was such a range of them. Obviously, Linda, who hadn't been able to bake a decent eclair and then hadn't assembled anything.
Well, she made churros, basically, didn't she?
That's
what they look like, with the ridges.
It did not come together well for her. And I don't know what she did to do that. Because she made, I think, at least 2, if not 3 batches.
I wonder if choux pastry is just not something she does. But yeah, it was poor.
You know what I'm going to say? You know what I'm going to say? Because she said it. Her opening thing was,
Go on then.
mums know how to do pastry. Which instantly gets my back up as someone who's not a mum. And clearly she is a mum and she can't do pastry. So, I do suspect they edit in stuff like that to rile people up and get the social media going.
Stir that wooden spoon.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. What amused me is like they went down the line and they were going, oh, those ones are really fat. Those ones are really thin. Those ones are really fat.
Yeah.
Those ones are really thin. I'm like, did they give an exact sort of? Did they give an exact width measurement?
Yeah, what
in the
their
recipe
expectation was, but
because I don't recall there being an exact sort
Presumably there's a specific piping nozzle they use to pipe the choux, and it's about how much it expands from there, maybe.
Yeah,
but who knows?
dunno.
Who knows? Okay, so then we go on to the showstopper.
Yeah.
A caged tart.
So I know some of them were like, oh, why would you cage a tart?
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a really good challenge.
Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating. It's almost like one of those school projects where you're given, like, you know that one where you have to drop the egg off the roof or something like that, and everyone has to come up with an invention for how to protect the egg.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't off the roof. Having said that sounds a bit ambitious. But, everyone comes up with a very different solution to the same simple core problem. I felt like it was a bit like that. I love the fact that they had so many different approaches to the cages.
Yeah, totally agree. And it allows them to be artistic without being make a representation of this thing. It's like you say, it's open enough to have lots of choice and lots of things behind it without having a subject that's really narrow and doesn't make sense to us.
Did you have any thoughts as to what you would have done for a cage?
I think the pyramid is probably the closest, although the hemisphere is it's really hard because I can see why you would do that, but it has so many points of stress that I can see how easily it would go wrong, as we saw, particularly the arch for Mark. Just as soon as you put too much pressure on one bit, it's gone. Unless you make quite thick pastry, you don't want really thick pastry. So that's why I can see the pyramid as being a very good way of going about it. I can even see the box. And this is the thing, because Hermine's was so thick.
Yeah, where is the line between box and cage?
Exactly. I think
what proportion of air to pastry?
Yeah, if we'd been able to see through it more, we would have gone yes. But I feel like certainly the pyramid ones had more of a cage element to them. So, yeah, did you have any thoughts on what you would have done? Which way you would have gone?
Having watched it, I'm not sure I could deal with the stress of trying to pull my cage off a mould. I mean, that looked terrifying. Although the ones that did it well, it worked.
Yeah, but they all broke at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it was after Paul had done something with them, but they all had a bit missing.
Yeah. So, like you, having watched it, I'm thinking maybe the pyramid. I'm wondering though, could I produce some form of crystal maze type dome with octagons,
dodecahedron,
exactly.
D20 style?
I guess that's where the time pressures come in, isn't it? Over ambitious, much. Okay, what about the tarts? Which tart, other than mine, obviously, would you like to eat the most?
Of the ones they made?
Yeah.
Not really many of them. They'd all gone very citrus.
Right.
Or they'd gone for pear and sage.
Ain't nobody wants to eat the pear and sage tart.
The and I'm going to say this in inverted commas, gypsy tart, it is incredibly sweet and an incredibly basic tart.
Yeah.
I think if it had been me, I would have gone for a chocolate tart, something really cool, or a lemon tart, but I can see how many of them were going, right, we're halfway through, we now need to start doing much more delicate, much more intricate, interesting flavour combinations, this kind of thing. And I wonder if they are coached towards that. You can't just do a chocolate tart here. You need to go a bit further with it. So,
I really liked that Laura made a tart that she just makes for family gatherings.
Yes.
As opposed to spent time coming up with a pear and sage combination.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? But it's like,
agree.
that's a successful tart. She makes it for her family. Her family loves it. Love it.
Yeah, completely agree. And she did so well making it look good. I think actually the flowers on the board made it look a little busy.
Right.
I think without that, it would have just been, yes, she's done something quite elegant as the tart itself, and then a really good dome over it that she decorates well. So.
Yep. I thought Dave's placement of the mango, that looked stunning.
That's absolutely the one. And again, that's the one you could see in a shop window. It's done so well. He's glazed it. It looks lovely. It's simple without being too much, because Mark, the older Mark, who did the sort of chocolatey one with, I think, blueberries on it and other bits on it and so on, it was just so busy and so much, whilst having each item was delicate. But Dave just did something that looked so good and was so vibrant in itself. Yeah. And then because he then sprayed silver on the pyramid, it shone through the pyramid. Yeah. Which was really clever. Whereas the people, like Lottie's pyramid, was quite bright in and of itself. Yeah. So it diminished a bit what was inside. Yeah. You clearly need the contrast. Yeah.
What did you think of Lottie's debater's definition approach to what a tart is?
I can completely see what she's done, and I quite like it, because that is the way I can imagine it being served in a good restaurant. You know, serving a tart like that. It's not thick pastry on the edge and thick pastry underneath and a tart in the filling. Yeah. We've sort of deconstructed it slightly and done something more, but we've praised her for matching the brief in the past, and I think she's tried to push it here, and again, this might be a learning experience for her to go, don't question the brief. Make sure you do exactly what they expect.
I just thought, I agree. I totally agree. But I just thought, if you have to go to, parroting a dictionary definition of what, and probably even a specialist dictionary definition of what a tart is to Paul Hollywood, then you're on dodgy ground.
Exactly. Oh, I wasn't sure about this, so I looked it up. Well, no, at that point you should have gone, this is a bad idea.
Yes. There are many other tarts I could make.
Yeah, but I can see what she was doing, and I can see the idea behind it. Yes. To do, if it was the professionals, and you did 24 single servings of that thing, it would have been a great idea.
Yeah, and her piping skills that cage. Cage was outstanding.
Exactly, and I think I don't think it was hers. I think it was Dave's, where he'd clearly baked it in something to keep the edges solid, whereas hers, I don't think she had edges on it, so it had gone slightly misshapen in the way that pastry does. Yeah. So I can also see the very clever thing about keeping a really sharp edge to it, so it's easy to merge together.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that she was using isomalt, and she was going, it's like sugar, but it's more stable, and it's like, I appreciate the knowledge and the skill to have gone to that.
Yep, and doing the research, getting into it. Yeah. Great. We've not mentioned Peter. Shall we talk about the blueberry and lemon tart? Blueberry?
Blackberry.
No, blackberry, sorry, blackberry. Yes.
Yeah, I'd forgotten you didn't like citrus tarts. Sorry, honey, that's more for me, isn't it?
No, I do like a good lemon tart. Yes. It is a good thing, but I think they all went really far with the citrusy, or doing unusual combinations and things with it. And I think key lime is great. It's not something I go to. Key lime with meringue on it sounds too much. I
think I've just got to the point where I'm watching them all put meringue on stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, gilding the lily with far too much sweetness.
And I'm saying that creme pat used to be the thing. It then went to macarons, and everyone did macarons for ages. And now
we saw a few macarons. Did Hermine put some macarons on her tart?
Oh, maybe, okay. But and now it's meringue is the thing that everyone's doing. So I don't know what's going to be next. Maybe back to ganache.
Maybe.
Talk to me about making the tart.
Yep. So my choice, my free choice, with my own free will, I am not a number. So I chose to do Peter's blackberry and lemon tart. You might have to dial the volume down on that bit. Yes, because I love lemon tart.
Right.
And so I thought, I'll try that. Mm-hmm. So it's a hazelnut pastry. Mm-hmm. The pastry, to make the pastry dough, you basically pound your hazelnuts to bits in the food processor, and then chuck in the other ingredients and whiz them in a food processor to make them into breadcrumbs.
Yep.
And then you put a minuscule amount of liquid in there.
Yeah.
I was amazed at how little liquid there was in there. So I had like an egg yolk and a tablespoonful of water. Yeah. And that was it.
And I think part of that will also be the introduction of the nuts, because there will be oil in the nuts.
Right.
So that will add a little bit, particularly as you start working them further and further. Yeah. Because with the times when we've made oil from the nuts, you have to blend them for quite a while, but then suddenly you go, yeah, this has actually become something different now. So
because I was stirring it together with the knife as per the recipe, and I was going, well, it's never going to make a pastry.
Right.
Never going to make a pastry. And then suddenly it was a pastry.
Yeah. Chemistry happens, and
there you go. So I did that. There was a lot of so I found it really hard to make an elegant pastry base.
Okay,
I'll be honest. So you rested the pastry in the fridge, chilled it, and I always chilled it for the upper end of the chilling times. Right. Like, there's no timer on me. It's Sunday. I've got all day. And then you had to cut it in half. You had to roll it out to roughly a 22 centimetre diameter circle. And then you should put you were supposed to put a 20 centimetre tart ring on top of it. We don't have a 20 centimetre tart ring. So I used a releasable cake tin. Yep. So I put the 20 centimetre, the sort of the circular bit of that cake tin on top.
The sort of 8-inch, yeah.
Exactly. And that was on top of the baking tray.
Okay.
And you press that down so you got your base inside the cake tin.
Right.
And so I baked it inside the circle from the releasable cake tin instead. And then you had to take the rest of the paste, take the trimmings. Yep. So you've got that inside the cake tin, and then you had to make those into like sausages. Now, you're supposed to make it into one long sausage of 65 centimetres.
Okay, whoa.
We don't have the space for that.
Yeah, no.
And also, it was never going to stay in one piece anyway. So I decided to call it quits at the idea of doing it in one piece from the very start. So I did two 32.5 centimetre. Okay. Sorry, not 65 inch, 65 centimetre.
Yeah, okay.
So I did two 32.5 centimetre sausages. Mm-hmm. And then you were supposed to roll them into 4 centimetre wide tape. Okay, yeah, that didn't happen. And then you were supposed to sort of roll it up and put it inside the pie tin, the tart tin, and press it round to the edge. And anyway, blah blah blah. Long story short, I blind baked it. It came out of the blind baking, and all of my sides had kind of shrunk down and become lumps and bumps, and it wasn't really a very elegant tart case at all. But I decided to plough on nevertheless. Sorry, actually, I should talk about it a bit more rather than going, oh, that was awful. I think the baking and the blind baking and the egg wash, I actually think the pastry itself came out really nicely. And I'm confident that I can blind bake a pastry case. Yeah. I think the pastry itself was quite delicate. Mm-hmm. I think I would have felt more confident with a more robust pastry.
Okay. Did you bake the whole thing at once, or did you have to bake the bottom?
You bake the whole thing at once.
You bake the whole thing at once, so it's not baked in 2 sections. You add to it as you go.
You put the sides in, and then actually you chill it again for 30 minutes. Yep. And I think and I think by baking it all at once, you've got that seam so that it doesn't all seep out.
So, is it that it should have been there wasn't enough pastry? That perhaps there should have been.
I don't think I pressed it to the side well enough.
Okay.
And I also wonder if it really was a tart case where it would have been easier to press it into the side.
Yeah, because I think maybe tart cases aren't quite straight at the side.
Yeah, I don't know.
So maybe that's part of the thing because it was being held straight.
Yeah.
But
who knows?
Yeah, okay.
Who knows? Okay. I think I would have taken more time over pressing it in and trying to get a more rigid wall.
Did it have anything about how high the side should have been?
4 centimetres.
So the height. So it did need to be a deep tart tin because we have a less deep one, but
exactly. Okay. So because I looked at a few of our tart tins and I was just like, none of these are 4 centimetres high. So I got my pastry case.
Mm-hmm. And no, you are absolutely right. The pastry came out really well. I think I could taste the hazelnuts in there. I could crunch the hazelnuts in there. I think it had its own flavour without overpowering anything else, particularly when you get to the edge and it's a sort of nice kind of hazelnutty biscuit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay. I mean, the lemon filling is really quite straightforward.
Okay.
I will admit, I bought lots of fresh lemons. I got very sick of juicing lemons very quickly, right. And then I saw we had some Jif lemon in the fridge, so there's a bit of fresh lemon juice in there. There's a lot of Jif lemon juice, and then I remembered we had some of that Dr. Oetker's Easy Zest in the cupboard. Indeed. So I was like, I'm not even going to start zesting these lemons. I'm just going to use that because life's too short.
Life's too short, and we have it. We need to use it up.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay.
So, and that basically just whisked it all together.
Nice.
And then poured it into the tart case and banged it back in the oven at a slightly lower temperature. Okay. Now, the recipe indicated that it would set after about 15 or 16 minutes. it definitely wasn't set after 15 or 16 minutes.
Right.
So I left it in for another 5 minutes.
When we saw him pouring it in on the show, it looked really thin.
It was really
watery.
thin, really thin. Like almost sort of milk consistency. Because you're not cooking it at all other than in the oven. So I was a little bit taken back. I was expecting to have to do some whisking in a pan.
Okay.
But no, you just whisk it all together in a bowl.
Okay.
Pour it in cold, and it all just bakes in the oven.
Okay.
And I was a bit worried after 15 minutes because it's supposed to bake it until it's set with just a slight wobble in the middle.
Yeah, okay.
And after 15 minutes, I was like, no, that is now just still liquid with maybe just a little bit of set bits at the edge. But after 5 minutes, I would say I was a little worried that I may have almost baked it too much, but I think it was all right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you make blackberry curd. So just some blackberries with some more lemon juice.
Okay.
Jif. Stick it in a pan.
Right.
Cover the pan up over a low heat. 5 minutes to soften it. And then you put it, strain it through a sieve so that it says to lose the seeds. Quite frankly, you lose an awful lot of blackberry. I mean, you were left with some lovely juice, but there was an awful lot of blackberry left in the sieve. So I sort of retained that. I was like, I'm not throwing that away.
Okay.
They were expensive and they're tasty. So I've actually made some breakfast.
Nice.
I've mixed them in with some porridge oats and leftover cream and some of the excess curd. So I'm going to have a tasty breakfast tomorrow. Okay. And then, so make the curd in with some eggs, in with some sugar, whisk it. You had to use the sugar thermometer, which was quite good. It was quite fun. So I stuck in the sugar thermometer, and you had to use gelatine leaves.
Ooh!
I've never been a big fan of gelatine, and I'm not sure I've used the leaves before.
Okay.
I certainly haven't. So basically, you make all the curd stuff and needs to put it off to cool, and then you sit these gelatine leaves in cold water for 3 minutes.
Yep. Soften them up.
Then soften them up, squeeze them out. And then it still looks like you've got thick cling film in your hand. And you go, am I really going to put this in food? And you wang them in the curd with the butter. Okay. Mix it all together. Leave it to cool. And that curd tastes amazing.
Okay.
So tasty.
Nice.
So tasty. So then once everything had cooled a bit, I just put some of that on top of the tart. I did not have as thick a layer of blackberry curd as Peter.
Yeah.
Mainly because I was tipping it on really carefully, because what I didn't want to do was ruin my tart by having the curd cascading down the side. So I just put in enough to cover the top and to the level that the lowest edge of my tart case would take. Because whilst there were some rather spiky tall edges, there were also some low edges in my tart case. So that's why I had quite a thin layer of the blackberry curd on top.
So did you have some curd left as well at the end?
I did. I put some more in my breakfast oats creation, and we've got a little pot of it to put on some toast.
Oh, nice. Lovely.
Yeah.
Great.
And then you stick it in the fridge and leave it for 2 hours.
Okay.
And then you eat it, and it is good.
And it is incredibly tasty. I think it would be interesting to have it with a little bit more of the blueberry, with the blackberry, sorry, because I think you said this as well. The blackberry does disappear a little, because the lemon is so sharp. But it is a very nice lemon tart with a berry accent. Yeah. And I like that. I will eat a lemon tart, and if it's done really well, I'll like it. But this takes the edge off it being a lemon tart and turns it into something on its own.
I would make it again.
Okay.
If we're having people coming around for dinner on a Sunday, and I had the Saturday to prepare it, I would definitely make it again. I don't think I'd want to try and make it on the same day as I was also making a main meal for people to come and eat, because I think it would all just get a bit too much. But yeah, if I had a day before to make it, I would definitely do it again, because I'd be pleased to serve that. Yeah, I think it's come out really, really, really nicely. And I can see if we had a decent pie tin for it, decent tart tin, because part of the thing is, I think, putting the sides in, those sausages, and then trimming them. Yes. So you get that sort of flat top as well, which I don't even think he did. So well, I was so pleased when his came out after the blind bake. I can't remember what he said, but I was like, yes, that's what mine looks like too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it is clearly part of the design of it, and he's not gone to the sort of professional end, delicate, very styled, that kind of thing. But I can see
how easy it would be to do this.
Yeah.
Slice it off at the top, pinch it in a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it came out really well. I think you should be really pleased. It was a good day's baking.
Yay! Days baking.
Yes, it did look because it's got so many components, and each bit needs resting
There's
time
a lot
in
of
between.
Resting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It was. I had the time today, so it's all good.
And I think it's come out really well.
Yes.
We'll
We'll have
terrific.
some more after dinner.
So that was the thing. No one got a handshake.
No. Laura maybe came close, but still didn't.
Laura got Star Baker.
Yes.
And I think a couple of people pushed her close. I think in general everyone did quite well.
Yeah.
I think the Eclairs people struggled with. I think Mark struggled with getting his cage out, although a number of them struggled with cages. I think Pear and Sage was a weird combination choice, where you could have done a chocolate tart.
I mean, also Pear is a very. I mean, I like a nice pear. But pears are very sort of Marmite type of fruit. There's a lot of people who just don't like pears at all.
It's such a bland flavour, I think.
Yeah.
And then pear and sage.
Yeah.
I wouldn't order that.
But I say no one's going to choose that off a menu.
No.
Yeah. Not when there's salted caramel and chocolate.
Well, exactly. You could do some really interesting tarts there.
Yes.
But I'm not surprised Linda went.
No, I mean... her technical was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Her signature was not on brief.
It was the wrong brief, yep.
And, I mean, her showstopper was A, a disaster with the cage, and B, even if the cage had worked, I think the tart underneath was quite simplistic compared to what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, I think the core tart, again, inverted commas, gypsy tart, is a very simple thing, a very sweet thing, a very, certain flavour. The weird chocolate doily she was trying to do by hand. I don't understand why she was just doing it in squiggles. Because Peter did the cage by hand, saying, I'm just going for interesting curves. But he was keeping it simple. It was just a single curve, and then another single curve, and so on. She was just freehanding
a doily.
A doily, which, no, that's not how it works. So I think it would have looked amateur, maybe, if it had come off well, and then the chocolate didn't come off well. So... that all failed, and then the cage was just single strips of colour. So I don't think there was particularly a lattice going on there either. And like other people were saying, I'm trying to get it to cross over so there's lots of contact, so it's got lots of strength to it.
Yeah.
She had none of that.
No.
So
it's sad. I mean, she's a nice lass.
Yeah.
She seemed a very nice lady.
Yep.
But I think she'd reached the point where everyone else was pulling away. I think there's been a couple of weeks where she's done a solid job.
Yep.
And she stayed in because there've been people who've had disasters.
Agreed.
And I think this week, even if she'd done a solid job, maybe Mark would have been a little bit more in danger if she'd pulled everything off. Yeah. But as it was, she didn't do a solid job.
No.
And the core idea underneath was not necessarily good enough.
Yeah,
having said that, I would have happily eaten her samosa.
Okay. Yeah, I think everyone who's left in, I now don't know who could win it. I think they are all very strong and coming up with good ideas. And I've said this every single season. I think there are some who have been in trouble, who are learning from being in trouble. I don't think Hameen's been in trouble. I don't think Dave particularly has. So I could see them now getting to a point of coming unstuck, and everyone else has had the opportunity to have a problem.
Feel that emotion and work beyond it.
And go, I didn't stick to the brief. I need to stick to the brief next time. I overcomplicated this. I picked the wrong sort of pastry thinking it was going to be smart, but it wasn't. Something on those lines that they go, and now I know how to tackle challenges on week 8 and week 9.
Yeah.
Where you can't mess up.
Yeah. So what's next week? What's the...
Japanese week.
Oh, interesting.
Very interested in.
That is interesting.
Not sure what any of it is going to be. There looked to be a sort of green pastry type thing for the
matcha
technical,
in there,
maybe. But that would be very interesting to see what we want to bake, because we are massive Japan files in this.
Although, having said that, I mean, I love Japanese food. Of Japanese food, the bit that I have the least excitement over is Japanese desserts.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So, yes, we'll see.
Well, yeah, and breakfast as well. Japanese breakfast is not the strongest, but Japanese food in general is wonderful and a go-to cuisine very regularly in this house.
Absolutely. Am I going to sit through the entirety of next week's episode going, well, that's not authentic?
Yes. Yes. In the same way people sat there this week going, well, that's not a pasty. That's not a pasty. That's not how you do pasties. You have to do pasties differently. It's fine. It's fine. It's just a TV show. They're given a very wide thing and they're allowed to mess around with recipes.
Yep. Okay. I'm about to say, I think we also will have to see, especially if they do put the technical recipe up, whether we'll be able to get hold of the ingredients.
Yeah.
If it's something that involves, I don't know, anko, red bean paste and things like that. But yeah, exciting.
Oh, the internet's full of options for things like that, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, don't forget to tag us if you are doing any of the bake-alongs with us. There were lots of people doing really interesting things over the last couple of weeks. Mandy Kay did Babka. Other friends did Babka. I think there were a number that came up, so we're putting them in our stories. So look us up on Instagram. We're at Eloquent Gushing.
Yep. And I'm at Kendo Cat. And I want to see Debbie Palmer's Eclairs. Whilst we were talking, my Apple Watch buzzed with Debbie telling me she'd done Eclairs. So Debbie, I want to see your Eclairs.
To either use the hashtag worth the calories or tag Eloquent Gushing and Kendo Cat in that. And if you do like what we do, don't forget we love it when our listeners support us. You can do so by going to patreon.com/eloquentgushing. There's lots of different ways of supporting us, different reward levels, where we'll send you physical stuff. We will give you early access to shows where you get to chat to us on Discord. It's amazing when people do support it. It allows us to do this sort of thing. Get in ingredients, get in useful baking things, and produce shows that I think people like. Terrific. So we will see you next week for Japanese Week.